Hi, if you're new here, I'm Ash and I'm working on a sapphic gothic novel. And it's time for a little update on how this month's writing challenge has been going. And if you couldn't tell from the intro, I am completely starting over with my draft of Project Sailor because I was writing it this past week, and honestly, since the beginning of November, and it is boring. It's just boring, and I don't want to write a boring story. Now, I know I can edit it and make it better, but I have absolutely no interest in continuing this project, and I really don't want to fall into the trap of hating writing and then taking weeks, months, or even years off of writing like I have before. But I kind of want to talk about why I feel like it's a good idea to just completely start over versus try to push through. So I finished first draft of Project Sailor middle of last month, and I was feeling really proud of it. I got from the beginning to the end, wrote 35,000 words total since end of June or July, and I thought it was pretty okay. And then November came and it was almost a rewrite instead of a draft two, but it had the same characters and the same overall story. And I think that's the problem. As I started writing, I realized the story I kept on telling myself was the same. It was so generic. That was the problem. The story is that there's a girl that gets turned into a vampire. That's not a story, that's an idea. And that is why I think I'm struggling so much. Now, I did make a video where I plotted out the entire book, but I only did 1 to 2 sentences, and that was really great and helpful at first. But when I think about it, those sentences were a little too general. Maybe I should have added on a third sentence. Maybe I should have focused on writing more specific sentences about things that happen. Because as I got into the middle section of the book, which should be the most exciting part of the book, it was just like she's in the garden again. Okay. I liked my garden scenes. And if you saw my video that I put out a couple days ago, I talked about how drawing this scene actually helped me feel more inspired. And that's true. I actually really love the scene where I have her in the garden and some of the scenes that came after that where I wanted to evoke that same emotion, but that was kind of it. But what I learned from doing that exercise of drawing and really thinking about my scenes was that I need to keep thinking about my scenes. I need to think about more scenes. And I recently watched a video by Lizelle Samberry where she pretty much said the same thing. And if you don't know who that is, she is a published author and she's currently working on some books right now. And I'll link the video down below. But basically she was talking about how when she has an idea, she doesn't just start writing, she starts to collect and think of more scenes for that book. And if she has enough scenes, or when she gets enough scenes, then that's when she decides to start writing. And I feel like what I did was I took an idea that I had that again was very general, not well planned out at all, and tried to write a book based on that idea. And I somehow managed to do that for draft one. But this draft, as I'm trying to really think of a deeper meaning to my story, or honestly, a meaning at all, I realized there's really not a story here. A girl turns into a vampire. You can say that about the last book of Twilight, I believe. You can say that about parts of Interview with a Vampire, where that little girl turns into a vampire. You can say that about pretty much any book, TV show, or movie where someone turns into a vampire. That's not the story. That's just something that happens to a character. But what is the story about? And that's what I feel like I really want to discover throughout the end of November, and honestly, maybe even in December. And I just feel like I'm entering my plotter era. Like, I don't want to say I'm full-blown plotter. You know, labels don't matter, but like if I'm labeling it, if I'm labeling what's happening here, I think I'm going into plotter mode, because the little bit of plotting that I did do was helpful, and now I have that desire to do more. However, I'm still someone that very much gets inspired and gets ideas when I'm writing, which unfortunately wasn't happening with this recent draft because it was so boring. But in general, I do get ideas when I'm writing. So I feel like I'm not gonna stress myself out by sticking to my outline 100% once I get it done. I'm still probably going to add new things, change things, but I think I really wanna go into this draft really understanding the story that I'm trying to tell, have some really interesting scenes, maybe a few lines of dialogue here and there in my outline. I want to know the beginning, middle, and end. and not just know them, but I want to feel excited about them. I want to know about some really cool scenes that I have planned. I want to know, how does my character feel about her transformation? I want to know more about my characters. I love the characters, no, I like the characters that I have, and I'm probably going to use them, but they're going to have different backstories. They're probably going to have different purposes. Probably going to change some of their names to have different meanings as I develop this story more. But I want to give you an example of an issue I was currently having. So in my last draft and in the one I was working on this month, my main character gets turned into a vampire, and then she has to, or ends up going to live in this castle or house with the woman that turned her into a vampire. And I kept asking myself, why would she just randomly go with a stranger? Does she trust this person? What happens when she gets to the house? How is she building connection with these other people? Why does she just decide not to leave when weird things start to happen? I just felt like I had all these questions, but no answer. And then when I did finally have an answer to some of these questions, it was an unsatisfying answer. I thought it was really boring, and I was just losing interest in this story. And I don't want to do that. So I want to start Project Sailor over with a clean slate. There are core things that I know I want to keep. It's definitely going to stay sapphic and gothic and be about vampires. Those are the three things that I want to make sure that my story includes. And I think the problem I had before was thinking that sapphic, gothic, and vampire was what my story was about. But it's not. Those are just elements that my story has. And I'm starting to realize there's a difference between knowing what the story as a whole is about and the kind of story that I want to tell is, versus just little things that my story has. Like I can say my story has mainly Black characters, but am I trying to make commentary about being Black? You know, like there's a difference, right? So like I can have Black characters without my story being about Black people. And so I just want to make sure I understand the difference between elements that my story has and what my story is about. So that's what I need to kind of figure out. Let's just like get into it. Let's just start looking at Pinterest. Let's get some visual inspiration. Let's start just thinking of some new ideas. Let's just brainstorm. I haven't done that in so long. I just want to brainstorm and just come up with a bunch of ideas, sit on them for a little bit, and then come back tomorrow and then think about some more ideas. And then hopefully by the end of this month, I have a stronger grasp of what this book is supposed to be about. But I'm also not telling myself that I need to have the whole outline done by the end of November. This is definitely something that I really want to sit with and take a while to do. I just need to embrace this plotter era. So yeah, let's just get into it. Okay, so I just finished doing my brain dump. I mean, you're never really done with a brain dump, but I'm done with it for now. I'm gonna just come back to it later on. But I'm just kind of ready to look at some visuals. So I'm gonna head over to Pinterest and see if I can find any visuals that spark an idea. I kind of want to redefine who my main character is. So I'm gonna be looking for images mainly that relate to her, but we'll just see what else I find. Okay, so I just finished like figuring out, I don't want to say my main character, but definitely one of my characters. Here are the images. This is what I found, and I definitely do want this character to be artsy. That's gonna play a role, at least based on my brain dump. We'll see how it goes. Nothing is set in stone, but I'm gonna just keep on spending the rest of this week just figuring things out, and hopefully by the end of November I have a solid plan, and then I can really get into plotting in December. Yeah, so big switcheroo, completely starting over on this draft. I would love to know in the comments below, just how are things going? Did you end up doing a really big pivot this month, or something that was just completely unexpected, or are you on track with your November writing goals? Let me know in the comments below.